Welcome to the Accelerating Digital Adoption Podcast. I'm Jay Kerway, Managing Partner at Value Add Group. We at Value Add Group, with our accelerators, are helping healthcare leaders get unstuck and accelerate digital adoption for better, faster R&D. And today I'm joined with Biotech advisor Diego. Diego, thank you.
Thank you, Jake. It's a pleasure being with you today.
Always a joy to be with you. And before we jump in, I have a customary tune that I like to play to get us in the right frame of reference and frame of mind. And feel free to dance. Ready for it?
There you go.
Here we go. Just flow with it, Diego.
Powered by Riverside.
Yeah. There it is. Raising the roof, right? Okay, my friend. How does that feel?
Felt great.
It felt great raising the roof.
There you go.
I liked it. We've had a lot of good times together, you and I.
Yeah, well, and by the way, you got me dancing, so hopefully my wife doesn't see it and complains about I was dancing with someone else.
Right. I think it's better that she sees it than she's told it. It sounds
Exactly.
worse than it really was. So Diego, boy, we had a good time in Moab, didn't we?
We had an awesome time. I
Yeah.
wish this year we could do it again.
Maybe there's an opportunity. I'll tell you, these are memories and experiences that are definitely, if not worth reliving, at least worth revisiting. So let's do that. Tell me about your experience in the accelerator, in person in Moab, but also the coaching, the people you met, the peer learning that we did. Tell me what that experience was like for you.
I think very, very shortly, I think the experience was awesome. I think the fact that I was really looking forward into 2025, maybe 2026 as an opportunity to repeat again. And I think there's a number of reasons. One, the opportunity to meet new people, I think was always great. Obviously, it was people with a kind of a similar goals to mine and care about the healthcare industry, which I think it just brings forces together. And maybe the other topic was also about people who cared about how to fix the most relevant topics that are happening right now in the industry. And so I think that was kind of what brought me there in the first place. And the second place is I've been working with Justin for a good amount of time, and I had the opportunity to meet you and all the others. And so from what I got out from my first conversation with Justin many years ago is he knows what he's doing. He has a kind of a unique approach in terms of how he does training, how he is tackling challenges across the board. And so while as with anything in life, you have to think about the inputs of going to Moab or taking the training and the outputs. Kind of my reflection almost immediately was there's always going to be more outputs than inputs, and so it's a positive equation from a business perspective, if you may, and so that was fantastic. I think thinking about what you guys deliver is always beyond expectations. I think it's important, and kind of when I reflect back about what happened in Moab was very much about building very strong relationships, building that trust, which I think it is ultimately clear when you are thinking about running any given business, whether you are working for a company or running your own business. Having trust is critical, and having trust is in yourself so that others can build trust in you. And so that was a key learning that While it might feel obvious, it was not as obvious up until the time I had the opportunity to review it with you guys. Uh, think about the Clifton Strengths, which is something you were doing uh, as kind of a key component of the training. I think that was also kind of revealing in many ways. In many ways for me, but also as I'm thinking about building teams going forward. And for me was, okay, now I understand even call it a test that probably doesn't know me at all, was able to tell things that I was already kind of bringing up on a regular basis. So in my case was about strategy and execution, which were key components there. And but then the other element was, when you are thinking about building teams, you should be thinking about teams that can strengthen your strengths, but also can bring up strengths that are not within your core self. And so that ultimately brings the kind of team that you want going forward, so that you can challenge each other, so that you can complement each other. And so again, it comes back to the people you meet, to the people you know, and to the outcomes you can come up with and take on into your daily basis, if you may.
Diego, let's break this down. You willing?
Yes, of course.
So you mentioned trust. We do spend a lot of time on trust in the accelerator. Everyone talks about it. Most everyone knows they need it. As you said, there was a bit of a moment where you realized, I have to have trust in order to get it. What other insights into practical ways to build trust that may not be obvious to others who, like, yeah, no doubt, we need trust. Great. Let's okay, what do I do with that? What are some practical ways that you've learned or have been able to build trust that have helped you to accelerate the digital adoption you do in your biotech work?
So I think as you were bringing up the question, I think the very first thing is it takes time. And so building trust and having trust in oneself, it takes time. And so you need to make sure you are cultivating, that you're nourishing the land, so that that trust starts sprouting, if you may. And I think that the trick here comes is when you are so immersed into the business world, it's about, yeah, we need trust and we need trust now. And sometimes, and maybe the reflection was, one, while the group and the cohort was building trust, we were doing nothing business related. Think about the activities, whether it was just walking, hiking, or going on the four wheelers. We were building trust as we were moving. And so it's not about just bringing your skill sets, if you may, but it's about building everything that comes along with it. And so for me, that was a kind of a big aha moment, if you may, which is, oh, so these people, these trainers, if you may, this group managed to get us build trust for even a couple of days and more, if you may, by not doing anything business related. And then all of a sudden, everything came up and everything was built up very quickly.
We were able to get our real case done in less than 48 hours. Yes. After having built that kind of trust. What did that...
But maybe to that point, it was... as we were going through the week, it was, okay, it's Monday. We've done no business. It's Tuesday. We've done no business. We keep talking about doing business, but we don't get to do the business, if you may. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves, call it end of Wednesday, Thursday morning, talking about business and doing business. And it all happened very, very quickly. And one of the key components for me was the trust was there. We took so much care about building trust in an environment that was, call it safe, that we ended up building trust for many other topics that were not just the joy of going on a four-wheeler.
Gotcha. Okay, so that gives me a little bit more understanding when people will say, go slow to go fast. So what are we doing when we go slow? It's building that trust. But what did that look like? You said there's no work. I mean, our emphasis, of course, is the human connection. Who is Diego? What does he want out of life? What does he bring to a relationship? Who is Jake? What does he want out of life? What does he bring to a relationship? So while it felt like we weren't doing business, for example, Clifton Strengths came before we went into the work.
Exactly.
And so those inputs of understanding people's strengths helped accelerate the output. How would you describe the feeling and what you were able to accomplish together that might be different than other settings where you're in a boardroom or a conference room versus other settings that are more corporate?
So maybe thinking about the more corporate, I think there's inherent focus on checking the task and get it done. And the more checks we have, the better we feel. And so it becomes a matter of how can we check that box. I think on the other side, and the approach we took here was, yes, there's probably a few check marks that we have to put around what we are working on, but we don't know what we are working on. We need to build that relationship. We need to know each other. We need to find ways where we can collaborate together without that task, without necessarily an agenda. Maybe that goes to the task and checking the mark is, I have an agenda, check, we're good. In this case, no one really knew what the agenda was all about. So they had the opportunity to focus on building those relationships, no agenda-driven relationships, which again comes back to being critical. And It was not about I'm winning versus you're winning, which sometimes happens in the corporate world because everyone is driving their agendas, their functional agendas, their organizational agendas versus, okay, here I'm just sitting in front of 6, 7, 10 people that I've never seen before. And we are probably going to be working on something important within just a matter of hours. And let's make sure we know each other, we leverage each other's strengths, and we trust their knowledge and expertise, regardless of where they come from. Company, educational background, functional capabilities, if you may. And so I think it was much more about the core of who we are versus what our business card says.
So strong. Okay, my friend. I'm curious now that you've moved into your work advising biotechs. What have you done? What's made you successful? What's helped you accelerate digital adoption and get better results in your consulting work?
I think you kind of answered that before, which is one, I think it's the trust element, which is, again, you need to trust yourself so that others can trust you. I think that's a very important one. But number two is that sometimes you need to go slow to go fast. And I think regardless of whether it's digital or whatever, it's ultimately about a transformation. And any given transformation needs people. And when it comes to people, it takes time and it takes commitment. This is thinking about digital in particular. This is not something that the IT department can fix for us. This is something that we all need to be fully involved, fully immersed, have the right mindset to be taking on new digital innovation or any given innovation, if you may, so that it's even broader than just the digital. For me, it's more about the philosophy that goes behind it, the mindset and behaviors that you need to keep pushing things. And for me, what that has meant is I have had the opportunity to work with a number of very different companies in very different situations beyond the large organizations where maybe resources are more abundant. It also comes with other challenges, but smaller organizations are facing challenges that are in many ways very similar to the large organizations. And for me, when I step back, is about having that mindset of we need to be leveraging the tools, we need to be leveraging the knowledge that is out there to help us solve the challenges that we are facing. This is in many ways similar to the, okay, we're investigating a drug in immunology. Why shouldn't we rely on industry work that has been done before? Why shouldn't we be relying on knowledge that is being shared publicly in science, as an example, in nature? It will feel dumb not doing that as a way to influence how you're thinking about different topics. Why would you try to come up with how you sum up numbers when it's already been invented? Why turn that wheel again? It took many years to come up with that, so why would you try to do things differently when there's no such a need? And so again, it's that mindset of let's make sure the tools that are out there, whether it's digital, whether it's knowledge, is something we leverage to come up with a best solution. And that might feel philosophical, but let's maybe bring it down a level or two, which is when you are working in a cross-functional team, which I think will most likely be the norm in our industry, is the opportunity to learn from one another. People come from different backgrounds, from different education, from different functions. And so it's the opportunity to share in that group setting our experiences to come up with the best solution possible.
How do you take that time? You do have a checklist you have to get done. And your experience has been that the time on the front end that had no agenda was as valuable, if not more valuable, than the time when you did. But I don't often have the luxury of time without an agenda. How do I justify, how does that work in real life? How does it happen for you?
Well, I hear you and I feel you in many ways. It has taken us probably a few weeks for both of us to connect. But when I think about it, and that was one of the learnings that came out of the Moab experience, was you need to block time in your calendar for free time. And free time can be interpreted in as many ways as possible, whether it's doing your own research, spending time focusing on bringing up your skill set. It's about again enhancing your experiences and your knowledge in ways that could potentially be fruitful for the work you are doing. So it becomes less task oriented and more holistic oriented, in trying to again put time for yourself so that you can step back and look at the different problems with different angles. How many times have we heard someone coming up with a solution while they were showering? I think that's one example. And so what's important here is that once you have blocked time in your calendar, that feels like your brain is mentally trained to say, okay, now it's time to unwind, so that we are not just flushed with all the information that comes to us on every day on our calendars. We get notifications for pretty much everything. And so you need your brain to stop so that it can then go faster.
One piece of advice we often give people is just try it. Just try it. And then compare the difference between that week where you did block time for that free space and the week where you didn't. Let the results speak for themselves.
That doesn't mean you just need to have a day off every single week. It's you need to purposefully put free time in your calendar. give it 30 minutes, give it 1 hour every other day as a try and see what happens, as you say.
Thank you for making that clarification. It's not go ride your bike for an hour necessarily. It could be,
It could
but
be.
it is use the time to assess what's most important now and how do I build these relationships of trust and strengths-based relationships so that we can go faster when we're back together.
Yeah, and well, as you were speaking, I was speaking with a colleague just yesterday about a somewhat similar topic, which is we are leveraging technology on a daily basis for pretty much anything. And so let's call it emails, which is now outdated in many ways, but we email each other for pretty much anything. And how many times have we been involved in those chains of emails where just catching up on that chain it just takes a half an hour for you. And so it's the being intentional in saying, hey, this is more than an email, this is more than a couple of emails. Could we just spend 30 minutes talking about the topic and bring in the right people versus the async approach of emails? And we can sort this out. And it's intentional in a couple of ways. One, you're bringing the knowledge together, and two, you're bringing the space for that knowledge to be around you.
Great advice. Good observations. Diego, I'm curious. Where are you going? What's your story? Tell me more about what's ahead for you.
So, as you know already, I have 19 plus years of experience in biotech, in finance, and strategy consulting. I have been educated in the business world, if you may, but have a passion for scientific advancements for the benefit of patients. And throughout my experience, one of the key topics that keeps popping up repeatedly is the R&D productivity, which continues to be on decline at an industry level. Yes, there are exceptions. There are companies that are doing great, but overall, there's a concern about R&D productivity. And so my goal is to be working with companies, with teams that really care about increasing our R&D productivity and thinking about that in terms of how can we do it today, as well as how can we do it into the future. And as again, thinking about R&D productivity, one of the key elements for me is about decision making. And the pharmaceutical industry, we all navigate this inherently ambiguous landscape, if you may. And for me, the best way is, and the best way to sort this ambiguity is about how are we making decisions that ultimately help us get closer to the purpose, or to your North Star. And as I was reflecting about those, call it 19 years, I've seen many successful teams, and many of which I've been a part of. And when I think about what are some of the traits and some of the principles, it came down, call it to three. One, standing by the data to reduce any sort of bias, and be willing to be thinking about scenarios and preparing for the future. Number two for me has been about being adaptable as a cross-functional team and making sure we are communicating with the team on a very regular basis. And the last thing for me was about having a long-term patient mindset, which is when you think about a drug you're working on, that could have a big lead on a particular indication, but may also have other opportunities in other indications. And so it's the opportunity to step back, to stop, think about what else could we be doing beyond what we're doing right now that could ultimately improve patients' lives. And so it's about taking the time to explore other avenues, other alternatives. And so I'm truly looking forward to be leading teams and leading the change towards that increasing R&D productivity by bringing broad perspectives in solving any strategic challenges, having that mindset where you bring key elements from different industries, from different disease areas, and bringing it to solve a challenge that initially might not think is the right thing to do, but at least you're pressure testing that. Number two, the breaking down the silos and ensuring there's clear communication. And number three, being in that mindset where you want to think about new methods, new technologies that ultimately allow you to pressure test your thinking and help you make better decisions for the industry and for patients.
Those three characteristics of successful teams are interrelated and they support each other, don't they?
They do, yes.
I can't take the long-term patient impact unless I'm data-driven and bring in diverse perspectives. And then if I'm not working to understand what the opportunities are from the data, I won't be able to see the potential long-term patient impact. And so it's back and forth. Diego, thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for sharing the time with me. I like to finish with a saying for you, for me, for all of us. Do one thing every day that scares you. And with that, Diego, many thanks.
Thanks to you, Jake. It's a pleasure and looking forward to that next engagement. And yeah, let's do something scary today. Yes. Thank you, Jake.